We were never meant to just grieve people who died. We grieve the versions of ourselves that no longer exist. We grieve for the relationship that we had hoped would change, but never did. We grieve for a future that is not coming. No one's ever told you, but that all counts. It's still grief. Welcome back to Unzipped Lips again. I'm your hostess, Mary Freshwater, and we are unzipping the harshest truth on what mourning truly is. Because mourning isn't weakness. Mourning isn't staying stuck. Mourning is acknowledging reality instead of bargaining with it. People think that grief only applies to death, but some of the greatest grief comes from things that are still alive, but no longer reachable or obtainable. You can't build a future while pretending you didn't lose something in this life. Think about that. You cannot build a future while you're still thinking something else can exist. So, how about if we start with redefining what mourning is? Because I think most people don't even know what the full concept of mourning and grief really comes from. But mourning is a process of emotionally separating from something that once held meaning, identity, or safety within your life. Now, this is a very large concept for a lot of people to understand. At one point, you felt your identity was a specific way and you went through a traumatic experience that broke you, and that person no longer exists. You have to mourn and grieve that person that is not there anymore. And you trying to get back to that person actually just hurts you more. Let me explain this a little bit deeper because, like, you can't rebuild, you can't rewrite things, but you can build different and you can write new. You can't change the past, you can't change what broke, but you can grieve what was and then build new. And grief, you don't need permission for. Actually, grief, most of the time you just don't understand what you're doing. So how do we get you to understand where you're at and what this truly looks like? Because closure on the past and what's hurt you, you don't need permission. It isn't someone gives you. This is something you claim through truth. And when you avoid naming and grieving, it turns into numbness. It turns into bitterness, chronic longing for something that is never coming, identity confusion, emotional shutdowns. I want to begin with mourning of self, especially self that used to be, because this one is huge that people don't talk about, is mourning yourself in versions of you that don't exist anymore. And this is really a big thing for me. In my workbook, it's step 4 is mourning yourself, because trauma will change you. Trauma will take things away from you. It doesn't mean that you can't build better. It just means that version of you isn't going to exist in this life anymore. And the sooner you can be okay with that, the better. Mourning of self is something that is so overlooked and a form of grief no one talks about. You may be grieving the version of you before trauma, the version of you that trusted easily, the version of you that believed in forever, the version of you that wasn't hypervigilant and guarded. Healing doesn't mean you don't get that version back. It means you honor who you were without living there and clawing for a version of you that may not come back. And the reason why I talk so passionately about this is because I had to grieve versions of myself that no longer exist. And honestly, the versions of that that I am today, I think are so much better and so much more resilient, and they know more. So when you think about it, yes, you lost this person. Yes, you lost a piece of yourself. You lost something that was innocent, but you gained something that has knowledge, that has experience, that knows more. It's not a bad thing. It's just a hard thing to go through. Because when you identify what it is you lost, you can then start to grieve it. Yes, it's painful to say goodbye to what was familiar. You're releasing your survival based traits when you do this, and it's something that protected you. You can mourn who you were and still choose who you are becoming. For instance, when I had a PTSD episode, I lost all control of my emotional stability. I was a powerhouse. I was a force to be reckoned with in the corporate world. I was amazing. I was a beast. And overnight, that collapsed. Overnight. I had a girl who ugly cried. I had a girl who couldn't keep it together. I was dealing with a girl that I didn't know or recognize. And I loved the person that I had been because I spent so much time building that girl through so much crap in my life. To be her and to lose her was painful, painful. But today I sit in front of you a stronger version. I know what vulnerability is now. I know what it is to be able to show someone my heart. And I know what it's like now to not be numbed out and to be a strong emotional woman. I know how to be emotional and vulnerable, and I know how to do it in a healthy way. I had to lose the strong one to get the wise one. All of us have a different story. And it's okay that different things break a version of you because you get to build a better version of you. And it's taking that and knowing that, but grieving what you lost, seeing the person that is no longer with you. And that is okay. It's okay. And let's be real. When you mourn the version you lost, the next big one is mourning relationships, even when no one is dead. I mean, we all have dealt with this, I'm pretty sure. A relationship can be a physical, emotional, or energetically. There are different aspects of types of relationships we hold space for, but you can grieve a relationship, a person, a bond you had with someone that isn't there anymore. It can be a parent that wasn't present or available for you, a partner who changed, a friendship you outgrew, someone who is still very much alive but is unsafe for you. All of these matter. These are all things you have lost. These are all relationships that no longer exist in your world. You got to mourn that. You have to say goodbye to the person that is no longer with you on this journey. You know, most of us hear that people are in your life for a season or a reason. But you know what? Honestly, when I look at it, everyone is in your life for a season for a reason. Not a season or a reason, for a reason. So when you see someone exit your life, honor who they were, but mourn who is gone. This is okay. There's no ceremony for this. Let's be real, there isn't. Again, no permission to grieve. And there's no end to that. You just miss them. Acknowledge missing that, because you don't just miss that person, you miss the role that they held in your life. You miss that attachment that you had with them. You had a bond, and acknowledge whether it was healthy or it wasn't. Acknowledge it, because you were a version of you when you were with them, and you are now also missing a part of yourself. The question is can that version hold up? If you like that version when you were with them, how do you build that version of you stronger so you can be that version more consistently? But mourn those bonds. Loving someone doesn't require continued access. You can love people from afar and mourn their loss. I had to do it with my biologicals. They were not healthy people in my life. And that's okay to say that. They just aren't. So I mourn them from afar. I mourn who they should have been in my life. I mourn what we should have been. And I mourn the fact that I don't have what I should have with them. I still love them, but that is what it is. Again, you're mourning things that are still here. Because it doesn't just come to physical loss, mourning and grief. I mean, that is way easier to identify, is a physical loss, death, illness, disability, injury. These are the easiest things to mourn because they are so prevalent. Like, you can't dismiss it. It is slap in your face, easy to identify. Everyone understands that type of mourning and loss. But even those come up with more than what most people understand. Because you lose capacity, whether it's physical or your independence. And this is when we're talking about illness and injuries. Like, people don't mourn those enough, that your life has changed. You have lost function. You've lost identity. You've lost a life that you imagined. You've lost more than just what it is. And society rushes you to be grateful, that you're still alive, that you are still capable of some things. It's okay to be like, but this wasn't what I imagined. This isn't the future I saw coming. This is not what I pictured. And with physical loss and death, like, this is easy, but this all happens with emotions and with yourself, because you didn't imagine you going through this. You didn't imagine your life being this way. You didn't imagine that your identity was going to shift and change. It's physical loss, emotional, relationship, self. All of it works the same way. We just don't talk about it. And my question is why? Because all of these come with the fact that there is a future that is never coming. The future you imagined, the relationship you thought was going to last 40 years and they turned abusive. You had a future that you had planned out in your head. It is not coming. You lost your spouse long before you should have. You had plans of growing old and being in a nursing home. You are now mourning a future that is not coming. But nobody talks about this. Nobody talks about the fact that we did have plans. We did have a future mapped out, and it's not coming. And yet we don't talk about the mourning of it, the grief and the weight of that is not coming. This grief is so different because it requires acceptance without evidence. Yeah. I know. You're probably listening and going, what? Yes. This type of grief is not tangible. You can't hold it. It is all what was within you, because you're mourning the family you thought you would have had, a marriage that you were hopeful for, the version of you that this world was going to see. All of that changed in an instant. Whether it was a traumatic thing that happened to you, whether someone was taken from you, whether a relationship changed, something changed and it's not coming anymore. That one day is just never going to arrive. And we don't talk about how much we long for that. We don't talk about how we had planned on this and mourn and cry and grieve over that future that is no longer coming. It's not a part of your strategy anymore. It's not a part of your daily life that you're building towards anymore. You need to build a different dream. You have to build a different life. You have to build a different you in order for you to be able to move forward. But again, you have to grieve what is no longer there, what no longer exists. Letting go of your future isn't quitting, it's choosing reality over fantasy. And this is something huge because it becomes you being attached to an illusion if you keep holding on to something that's not coming. It does not exist anymore. And sometimes you have to mourn something that was never going to exist. So if you find yourself in a bad marriage, you need to mourn that it was never going to happen. That grief sucks, but you can't avoid it. I know all of us want to avoid grief and we want to avoid, mourning and going through that process, but you can't avoid it. Because when you do, so many other things happen. I mean, I understand we don't want to because accepting the finality of it, letting go of control, facing loneliness, releasing identities that we were attached to, all of that sucks and it's scary because what comes next? The unknown comes next. I get that. But when we keep avoiding, we overwork, we over functioning in our lives, we're rebounding, we're numbing out, we're toxic positivity lives. Unmourned doesn't disappear, it leaks into everything else. So when I say you got to take this time, you got to mourn this, you got to identify it. You need to acknowledge what is no longer there, what is no longer coming, who broke, what version of you disappeared overnight. You need to acknowledge this because when you mourn and you name these things, you get to start allowing yourself to move forward. And it looks like anger at times. Allowing anger and sadness and confusion and relief, all of it, all of that comes with actually looking at it, naming it, and going through it. Letting the story end without rewriting it feels so much better than holding on to a story that serves no purpose for you. Let's create meaning without forcing a silver lining. You've heard me talk about toxic positive, identities and all of this. So, like, if you lost a limb, it's okay to mourn that limb. Dude, that sucks. You had imagined going through this life full bodied, full minded. Mourn it. And then find things that you can build new and into a new identity. I mean, dude, you could be an amazing person who lost a limb and is running a triathlon, running an Ironman, because you found your passion in being able to do something that you've never done before, in strength that you didn't know you had. You can't find that strength and you can't find that new version of you if you're wallowing in a corner in self pity and you can't figure out that you are grieving something that is no longer here. You can't move forward. You can't get there. So grieve, mourn, Understand that it is okay, and it carries just as much weight than the grandmother you lost. Because mourning isn't the end of everything. It creates space. It allows you to choose what's next. It allows you to build better. You can't build better if you're stuck holding on the remains to something that no longer serves you. If you don't mourn, you stay broken. If you mourn, you can stop dragging the weight that is already gone because you didn't lose yourself in grief. You get to meet yourself honestly. And I talk so heavy about this. Like I said, step 4 in my workbook talks about mourning yourself, mourning a piece of you that is no longer here, whether it is from a traumatic experience, whether it's from the loss of somebody. You need to go through this. You have to grieve it. You have to mourn it. Otherwise, that weight keeps going with you. Like I said from the start, you are not weak for grieving. You're not. You're stronger for it. You're not behind because you needed to say goodbye to a version of you that isn't here anymore. You're not broken because something ended, because that relationship went away. You're not. Some chapters don't need fixing, they just need closure. So you can just move on and be you. You don't heal by pretending something didn't hurt or you didn't lose yourself. You heal by letting go of whatever it is that is holding you back over and over and over. Healing doesn't happen once. Accepting something doesn't happen once. This is something you do for the rest of your life. You will consistently grieve and mourn people that come in and out of your life. You will consistently mourn and grieve pieces of yourself that change or disappear because something happened. You will constantly do this. It's understanding what it is so that way the process becomes easier and it's okay. It's okay to say goodbye to a version of you that you used to be before something happened. It's okay to. So say goodbye to that person. Become a better you. Thank you for unzipping with me again today. If you want to work with me on how to mourn yourself again, clarity call, book it. You can find my website at buildyou.us. If you just want to grab up my workbook and you can start working through things like this on your own, you can find it on Amazon, Build You After Trauma. Grab your copy. Start working through things. It's an easy way to start. And then reach out to me if you want help. Otherwise, reach out to me. I have resources, even if it's not going to be me. But thank you for unzipping. And thank you for having these discussions with me that are not easy discussions to have. So I'll see you on the next one.